In my past life, I managed my best friend Joanna's finances for 3 years, only to end up disgraced and dead in a car crash. She, however, framed me for embezzling 600,000 yuan. Overnight, she became an internet celebrity pitied by netizens across the country, reaping both fame and fortune. It was only after my death that I learned I had never lost the money at all. The whole mess was nothing but a scam she had staged all by herself. When I opened my eyes again, the sharp smell of disinfectant flooded my senses. I glanced around the hospital ward, and my heart clenched violently. I had been reborn. I was back on the exact day Joanna fell ill and was hospitalized. The day she asked me to pay her medical bills, the very starting point of all my misfortunes. Staring at the pale, frail Joanna lying in bed, I suppressed the hatred churning inside me and pretended to finally register what was going on. Back in my past life, it was this very day that I went to settle her medical fees, only to discover the bank card that should have held 600,000 yuan had a mere 1,000 left. No matter how I tried to explain myself, she insisted stubbornly that I had stolen the money. This life, I would never be the gullible pushover she could manipulate at will. I would strike first and take control. I sat calmly on the chair beside her bed, picked up my phone, and put on a blank, confused look, while every detail of my plan was already laid out clearly in my mind. Seeing me unresponsive, Joanna put on a guilty yet urgent act, hinting that all her savings were in my keeping and pressing me to go pay her hospital bills. I did not panic as I had in my previous life. Instead, I slowly pulled up the bank card balance, tossed my phone casually onto her bed, and watched her reaction with cold detachment. Her eyes welled up with tears in an instant, and she raised her voice on purpose, drawing curious stares from everyone passing by. She feigned utter disbelief, wearing a look of aggrieved betrayal, as if I had truly swindled her hard-earned money, me a look of contempt, and berated me, twisting and exaggerating what she had seen to the growing crowd of onlookers. Before long, the ward was surrounded by spectators chattering loudly. Every gaze fixed on me was filled with blame and disgust. Some called me heartless. Some said I would even steal a friend's life, saving money, and others demanded that the police be called to arrest me. Joanna, meanwhile, gave a flawless performance. She pretended to intercede for me, yet every subtle line implied that I had a lifelong habit of petty theft, and had let greed get the better of me this time. Putting on an air of generous leniency, she said she would write off the rest as her own loss, as long as I covered her medical expenses, perfectly painting herself as a kind, pitiful victim. Watching her hypocritical act, I felt nothing but bitter mockery. I held back my rage and said coldly that the card only had 1,000 yuan. I could take it or leave it. I did not have a single cent more to give. My words ignited full-blown fury among the crowd. They pointed fingers at me, their accusations growing louder and harsher by the minute. Some pulled out their phones to film, condemning me on camera for hoarding my friend's life, saving money, and warning everyone to be careful who they befriended. In just a matter of minutes, the incident was posted online, surging in popularity until it claimed the top spot on the local trending list. Drawn by the buzz, even more people rushed to the hospital to witness the scene firsthand, snapping photos and videos of me while spewing nasty remarks nonstop. I stood in the center of the crowd, not breaking down or scrambling to defend myself like I had in my past life. I knew all excuses would be pointless right now. This life, I would watch Joanna's mask crumble piece by piece. I would make her taste every bit of the agony I endured in my previous life, and force her to pay the steepest price for all she had done. The crowd kept growing. Their jeers' worth had changed me completely. I was no longer the soft-hearted, easy-to-bully girl I once was. From this moment on, I would be the one directing this play, and her carefully woven scam was about to collapse completely. I never could have imagined that a colleague of my boyfriend Jaden's would stumble upon my livestream, and that single sight dragged me straight back to the hell of my past life. Jaden had always been obsessed with saving face. When he rushed to the hospital, he didn't even give me a chance to explain a single word. His face darkened instantly, and he fixed me with a gaze brimming with disappointment, exactly the same look he'd had in my previous life. In my past life, I'd been with him for 7 whole years. On the day disaster struck, just like now, he refused to find out the truth. Not only did he not trust me, he joined the crowd in blaming me, dumping all the fault onto my shoulders. Looking back, he was the final straw that broke me completely. We had a vicious fight that night. Late into the midnight, he threw me harshly out of the apartment before I drove in a daze, my vision blurred by tears. I failed to watch the road ahead and crashed straight into a tree along the green belt. I didn't die right away after the crash. Covered all over in wounds, I couldn't move an inch, unable even to call the police or beg for help. Before long, the car began to leak fuel, and flames erupted soon after. Trapped inside the vehicle, I could only watch helplessly as the fire consumed me alive. The excruciating pain of being burned to death is still fresh in my mind to this day. I clutched my phone so tight my knuckles turned pale. Meanwhile, Joanna's eyes were red-rimmed as she pretended to be wronged and snuggled into Jaden's arms. I knew clearly that the tragedy of my past life was about to repeat itself. They knew full well that my salary and family circumstances allowed me to buy this bag easily, yet they chose to feign ignorance and deliberately make things difficult for me. files I'd asked her to print earlier. Upon hearing Cindy's words, Joanna's face turned deathly pale in an instant. She stared at the documents in my hand, screaming and demanding to know what I was holding. She accused me of always trying to harm her, lunging at me as she spoke, her fingernails nearly scraping my wrists. A split second before she could touch the documents, I raised my hand and flung the entire stack into the air. Crossing my arms, I sneered, watching as Joanna dropped to her knees in a frenzy, scrambling frantically to gather the scattered evidence. Take your time. I've got all the time in the world to play this game with you. The people around picked up the papers on the floor and gasped in shock after seeing what was written on them. The papers contained not only 5 years of bank transaction records, but also all the chat logs of her asking me for money every single time. My boyfriend Jaden pointed at the paper in his hand and told Joanna that she did receive a monthly salary of $10,000. Yet her total expenses over the years had long outweighed all her income. He paused, then looked at me in confusion and asked why there were regular transfer entries from another account in the bank records. I explained calmly, knowing how tough it was for Joanna to make it alone in a big city. I had deposited sums of money into her bank account at regular intervals, hoping she could save enough soon to achieve financial freedom. Watching her transfer the money away, little by little, I always thought it was her own choice and never asked a single question. I didn't wake up to the truth until she falsely accused me of stealing her $600,000. By then, she had already secretly used my identity to cancel my bank card, leaving me with no way to defend myself. Yet she capitalized on this to gain millions of followers, becoming a top influencer and making a fortune. The live stream was still ongoing, and all the viewers' abuse turned toward Joanna. She slumped down on the floor covered with scattered papers, screaming that all the evidence was fake, forged by me on purpose to frame her, and urged everyone not to believe me. Yet everyone instinctively stepped back, with no one willing to trust her anymore. Just then, the doctor walked in with a medical record folder, frowned, and snapped at the crowd to disperse, stating that this was a ward and the patient needed quiet rest. I sneered at Joanna, who was still faking a serious illness and playing the victim. The trust she gained by fabricating lies about a terminal illness is about to crumble completely in the next moment. The doctor stepped forward and informed Joanna that her appendicitis surgery had gone smoothly with no postoperative complications, and she could be discharged from the hospital that afternoon. As soon as these words were spoken, the elderly woman in the next bed stared at her in shock and demanded to know why she had lied about having an incurable disease. The doctor explained in confusion that this was a general ward of the gastroenterology surgery department, not the ICU. Everyone glanced at the ward sign, only to realize they had been deceived by Joanna all along. My boyfriend Jaden looked at her with disgust, bluntly saying she was repulsive, and that he had foolishly trusted her so deeply. Joanna tried to defend herself through tears and reached out to grab Jaden's hand, only to be roughly pushed away by him. Before the words could fade, several uniformed police officers knocked on the ward door. The moment Joanna laid eyes on them, all strength left her body, and she collapsed heavily onto the floor. Every pair of eyes followed their steps, fixed firmly on Joanna. No one knew that this scheme designed to ruin her reputation was all laid out by my own hands. The officers scanned the room, then stopped in front of Joanna. They displayed their credentials from the Municipal Criminal Police Brigade and body cameras, and told her in a stern tone that she was suspected of embezzling a huge sum of public funds. The involved company had filed a police report, and the evidence was conclusive. She was required to come with them for questioning. Joanna broke down instantly, screaming hysterically that she was being framed. She struggled violently against arrest, and even kicked the officers who stepped forward to detain her. The police issued a sharp warning that she was now suspected of assaulting an officer, ordering her to stop resisting and cooperate immediately. After futile struggles, Joanna was eventually restrained and taken away by force. The onlookers watched her being led off in handcuffs, filled with regret and sighs. Some felt grateful they had not blindly taken sides, while others condemned her for exploiting public sympathy to incite online harassment against an innocent person. At that moment, Jaden took my hand with a look of deep remorse, offering a sincere apology for misunderstanding me by only listening to Joanna's one-sided words. Slack, coming sporadically before disappearing entirely in the end. As for Joanna, her fate had long been sealed. She was born into a poor family and could not afford her tuition and living expenses. Out of friendship and sympathy, I had financially supported her all the way through college. After entering the workplace, she struggled to fit in due to her humble background. Consumed by overwhelming vanity, she took desperate risks and embarked on the wrong path of embezzling company funds. As her embezzlement deficit was about to be exposed, Joanna carefully set a trap attempting to extort money from me to cover her losses. I voluntarily transferred over $1,000,000 to her. Yet after accepting the huge sum, she still smeared my reputation maliciously and hyped up the hospital farce to gain online attention. In the end, she escaped legal punishment, transformed into an internet celebrity, gained both fame and fortune, and lived a prosperous life. Reborn in this life, I would never repeat the same mistakes. The boss of Joanna's company was an old acquaintance of my father. I immediately reported her embezzlement truthfully. When the truth came to light, netizens who had once slandered me wantonly came one after another to apologize. I unexpectedly gained a large fan base, took the chance to become a content creator, and built a steady career for myself. Witnessing karma unfold before my eyes, I let go of all past grudges, reconciled with my trauma, and focused on living my brand new life, with nothing but peace and acceptance in my heart. My daughter Chelly was already in the 3rd grade of primary school. She was lively, cheerful, and independent, inheriting the best of both of us, and always performed excellently at school. Joanna was put behind bars. With the truth made public, I unexpectedly gained a large following and ventured into self-media content creation. Yet I would never be so shameless as to exploit others' scandals as a stepping stone for clout. My parents came back from their trip abroad, only to learn all the terrible things I'd been through in just 2 short months. That very night, they urged me to come home for dinner. The moment she saw me, her eyes welled up. She pulled me into a tight embrace and refused to let go. I soothed her gently, telling her I was perfectly fine. Dad sighed and explained helplessly that Mother had suffered a nightmare overseas. She'd dreamed that my ex and my best friend conspired to frame me, leaving me viciously targeted online before I died in a car accident. Tormented by worry, they rushed back home in a hurry just to make sure I was safe and sound. Hearing this, my heart ached sharply. The emotions I had held back for so long finally crumbled, and I broke down crying in Mother's arms. Noticing my strange state, my parents exchanged a glance, their eyes filled with utter shock. Meeting their worried gazes, I sobbed and confessed that it had never been a dream. It was everything I had truly lived through in my past life. I did not know why I had been given a second chance at life, but I told them every detail, all my grievances, the betrayal I endured, and the tragic death I'd suffered in my previous life. After hearing about my tragic fate in my past life, and learning the truth that Jaden had driven me out in the middle of the night and indirectly caused my death, my parents were seething with rage, consumed by heartache and fury. Mom cursed Jaden for taking me for granted and wasting 7 years of my sincere love, saying she could never swallow such unfair treatment. Dad also made a solemn promise that he would never let anyone who had hurt me get away unscathed. Soon after, Dad took decisive legal action. Jaden held Joanna legally accountable, with additional charges of defamation and insult added to her crimes. She received an even harsher
No, oh, oh. Oh, no, oh, oh. No, oh, oh. Hold on, girl, now wait just a minute. I've got something to say, you should hear it. Oh, I'm happy to make time for your feelings, but you have to admit I already do. Let's just break it down to you and me uptown, dancing all around till the disco ball pops. But I have to be me, and everyone can see your anger is misplaced, and I'm gonna tell ya, don't hate me 'cause I get attention. Don't turn me into what I'm not. I have to be me 24/7, and I ain't never gonna stop. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Oh, no, no, no. No, oh, oh, oh. And I ain't never gonna stop. Come on. Listen to me. I've tried so many times to tell you this is as good as I can be. Why isn't it enough to be faithful and also be the hit of the party? Let's just break it down to you and me uptown, dancing all around till the disco ball pops. But I have to be me, and everyone can see your anger is misplaced. And I'm gonna tell you, don't hate me 'cause I get attention. Don't turn me into what I'm not. I have to be me 24/7. And I ain't never gonna stop. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Never gonna stop. No, 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 no. Hey, yeah, 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 yeah. I ain't never gonna stop. No, no, no. Oh, I ain't never gonna stop. Ooh, I ain't never gonna stop now, baby. Never gonna stop now, baby. Yeah, yeah. Oh, no, no, no. I ain't never gonna stop now, baby. Ooh. Never gonna stop now, baby.
Notes carefully, incorporating numerous cutting-edge domestic and international case studies. On the day of the lecture, the hall was filled with entrepreneurs and senior executives from all walks of life. I delivered my viewpoints calmly and confidently. During the Q&A session, a middle-aged male student raised his hand with a sharp tone. He asked why most of my cases centered on women's issues, and whether excessive focus on gender-specific topics would limit a brand's scope of development. The audience fell quiet at once. I smiled faintly and replied composedly, "First of all, women's issues are never niche issues. Women make up half the population, and their purchasing power and social influence are undeniable. Secondly, truly inclusive brands never believe that focusing on one group means losing others, beneath all eyes." I went on to say that brands which truly respect diversity and uphold equal values always win wider public favor and customer loyalty. I concluded that business for good is an irreversible trend. Enterprises that integrate social value into their business logic are gaining growing competitive advantages, not a matter of gender, but of foresight. As I finished speaking, warm applause erupted across the hall. The questioning student nodded thoughtfully and asked no further questions. After class, many students crowded around to exchange business cards and express intentions for future cooperation. Among them was a female entrepreneur developing maternal and infant products. She grabbed my hand excitedly, saying she had long wanted to create socially responsible products, yet was always advised to prioritize profit first. After my lecture, she had finally firmed up her resolve. Seeing the light shining in her eyes, I knew the values I upheld were quietly taking root. Stepping out of the business school, Ethan's car was already waiting at the gate. He opened the car door for me with a smile and teased me about my first lecture. As the car merged into traffic, Ethan suddenly spoke. He would be on a business trip to Europe for 2 weeks the next month, attending an industry summit and negotiating several key partnerships. He asked if I wanted to take Chelly along for a family trip, and we could stay a few extra days to travel after his conference. I hesitated briefly. All projects at the studio were running smoothly with no urgent matters, so I said I would ask Chelly and my parents for their thoughts. He nodded with a smile. That night I asked Chelly if she wanted to go to Europe. The little girl's eyes lit up instantly, crying that she wanted to see real castles in the Eiffel Tower. My parents fully supported us, telling us to go without worry, as they would take care of the company and home. And so our European trip was confirmed. 1 week before departure, I received an email from an unknown sender. But the subject line sent a jolt through my heart, an update on Joanna's current situation. After a moment's hesitation, I opened it. The sender introduced themselves as a community staff member from Joanna's hometown county. The moment I opened the email, I learned that the woman who once dragged me into ruin had ended up living such a life. The email was brief and restrained in tone. It said Joanna had returned to her hometown after being released from prison. With the community's help, she ran a breakfast stall and lived an honest life working hard with her own hands. Recently, however, her mother was hospitalized with illness. Her brother refused to take responsibility, leaving Joanna to look after her mother day and night at the hospital. To cover medical bills, she had fallen deep into debt. The community planned to apply for hardship assistance on her behalf and needed background information. The sender had learned indirectly that Joanna and I were once friends, hoping I could provide an objective statement to help her pass the assessment. The email added that Joanna had never mentioned me to anyone there. The sender had found my contact information independently. They said Joanna had changed greatly, only wanting to live a good life and make amends, and they would fully understand if I chose not to reply. I stared at the screen motionless for a long time. It was only when Cindy knocked on the door to deliver documents for the afternoon meeting that I snapped back to reality. She set down the papers and noticed my pale face, asking with concern if I was all right. I merely shook my head and said it was private business. She asked no more and left. I closed the email and sank into deep thought. Faced with the enemy who had entangled me across 2 lifetimes, I made a decision even I had not expected, lost in thought. I wondered what I could possibly write in an objective statement. Should I write that she was once my closest best friend, yet schemed relentlessly to frame me, indirectly causing my tragic death in my past life? Should I mention her embezzlement of public funds and 10-year prison sentence? These were undeniable truths, yet if I told the full story, her application for aid would almost certainly be rejected. Still, I could never bring myself to cover up her past and speak favorably of her. Reason told me time and again to ignore it. Joanna's current plight was entirely of her own making, the consequences she deserved, yet a tangled emotion lingered in my heart, not sympathy, much less forgiveness. In the end, I did not reply to the email. Instead, through my father's connections, I donated anonymously to the community charity fund in her hometown county, specifying the donation to support released prisoners in need to reintegrate into society. It was not targeted at anyone individually, only a final closure to the grievances that had haunted us for 2 lifetimes. After doing this, my heart settled completely. Our European trip went perfectly. Ethan's conference concluded successfully, and we began our true family journey with Chelly. In Paris, Chelly was thrilled by the cruises on the Seine. In Switzerland, we took a mountain train through the Alps, and she gasped non-stop at the snow-capped peaks and lakes outside the window. In Tuscany, Italy, we stayed in an ancient farmhouse where she picked grapes with her own hands for the first time, smiling like a little son. Ethan held his camera, capturing countless warm moments. At night, we lay on the farmhouse terrace stargazing. Chelly had fallen fast asleep from exhaustion. As Ethan and I sipped local red wine, I whispered that sometimes life felt like a dream too happy, almost surreal, as if I might wake up any moment to find nothing had changed. He set down his glass and held my hand firmly, his palm warm and steady. He said it was no dream. I deserved every bit of this happiness. I held his hand back, eyes growing warm with emotion. This peace was what I had earned through 2 lifetimes of pain and tribulation. We spent the final days of our trip in Zurich. The moment I returned to Zurich, I finally saw clearly just how far I had come on this journey of rebirth. This was the city where I had first healed and started anew after my rebirth. To Ethan and Chelly, however, it was an entirely unfamiliar place. I took them to the lakeside cafe I used to frequent. Chelly tilted her head and asked if I had lived there alone. I knelt down to meet her eyes and said yes. Back then, I had learned many things here and sorted out many thoughts. Curious, she asked what I had figured out. I stroked her hair and told her I had decided what kind of person I wanted to be, what kind of life I wanted to live, and what kind of mother I wanted to be for her. Though only half understanding, Chelly leaned in and kissed my cheek hard, saying she loved me just the way I was now. My heart melted completely. Ethan stood quietly aside, his eyes filled with endless tenderness. Back in Shia City, our Clear Sky Scholarship received its first long letter from a sponsored student. A letter from the remote mountains, let me know the seed of hope I had planted, had quietly sprouted thousands of miles away. Returning to Shia City from Europe, life fell back into its busy yet fulfilling rhythm. The influence of our Clear Sky Scholarship kept growing. In its 3rd year, we received the first heartfelt letter from a beneficiary. The girl who wrote was named Li Wan, from a remote mountain area in western China. In neat, sincere words, she detailed her difficult family situation and how the scholarship had allowed her to pursue a computer major without worry. At the end of her letter, she wrote, "I do not know why you are willing to help girls like me whom you have never met, but you have given me far more than money. You have given me the hope to move forward. I will study with all my effort, and when I am able, I will help others in need too, passing this kindness onward forever." I asked Cindy to scan and archive the letter, then wrote an earnest reply to Li Wan, telling her there was no need to thank me. This was an investment in her hard work and potential, and her future achievements would be the best reward for this kindness. As our studio's influence grew, I became more selective, only taking on projects aligned with our values, including a training program for rural female teachers in remote areas. Who could have imagined that deep in the mountains, where I traveled 5 or 6 hours over bumpy, rugged roads, lies the most touching perseverance? I'm sorrowful. After a long and winding journey, I finally reached my destination. I was greeted by Mr. Yang, an official from the local education bureau. In her 30s, she had sun-tanned skin. I walked into the village central primary school. The school buildings were extremely simple, yet spotlessly clean and tidy. The children were small and thin, wearing faded, well-worn clothes. but their eyes were filled with curiosity and longing for knowledge. During the training session, more than 20 female teachers from various village primary schools kept their heads down, taking notes earnestly the whole time. Most of them were very young, still carrying childish innocence on their faces, almost like kids themselves. Yet they have shouldered the great responsibility of educating the next generation in the mountains. During the break, I noticed teacher Luo. After graduating from Teachers College, she volunteered to return to her hometown to teach, and has stayed here for 3 years. I know the living conditions here are tough, and few people can settle down, but she has never truly thought of leaving. Even when she once hesitated, all thoughts of leaving vanished the moment she saw the children's hopeful eyes. She tutors poor girls who are on the verge of dropping out in silence, and secretly applies for financial aid for them. The little girl who once nearly dropped out of school was successfully admitted to the county junior high school last year. She wrote in a letter that she also wanted to become a teacher when she grew up, and returned to her hometown to teach the younger children in the village. This single simple sentence became the most solid reason for teacher Luo to keep holding on. I was deeply touched by this pure perseverance. These women who silently take root in the mountains are the ones who change the world with their faint but warm light. Our cameras ought to be focused on them. The filming went exceptionally smoothly. The tenacity, gentleness, and selfless love these female teachers have for the children flowed naturally in front of the camera, requiring no deliberate embellishment at all. At the time of departure, Officer Yang held my hand tightly, her eyes red with tears. I made a solemn promise to her that I would let more people see the dedication of these rural teachers. On the ride back, the young director sighed that this experience had been a spiritual baptism. Looking at the continuous green mountains outside the window, I told myself in my heart that I must record all of this with the most authentic footage, so that these lights hidden deep in the mountains could be seen by more people. We didn't buy trending searches or do deliberate marketing. We simply released this documentary about rural female teachers quietly. Yet the power of sincerity is always the most touching thing in the world. After the documentary went online, its views, reposts, and comments climbed at an astonishing speed. Countless viewers were deeply moved by the stories in the footage. They donated voluntarily and filled the comment section with respect and encouragement. To our greater surprise, many large enterprises took the initiative to contact us, offering long-term funding for local schools to improve teaching conditions and teachers' benefits. Soon I received a call from Mr. Yang. She was so excited that she could barely speak coherently, talking over and over about the donations received, the new dormitories to be built, and the brand new school bags and textbooks for the children. Listening to her cheerful voice, an unprecedented sense of well-being welled up in my heart. While my career moved forward steadily, my family life remained warm and peaceful. My daughter Chelly was already in the 3rd grade of primary school. She was lively, cheerful, and independent, inheriting the best of both of us, and always performed excellently at school. I never imagined that my daughter would grow up to be exactly the kind of child I once envied the most in my childhood. She never has to compromise her feelings, please anyone, or suppress herself just to cater to others' opinions. During a parent-child activity, a little boy domineeringly snatched the building blocks she was playing with. She didn't cry or rush over to me for help. She just stood there calmly and spoke out her thoughts clearly and firmly. The boy froze for a moment, felt everyone's eyes on him, and finally gave the blocks back awkwardly. Afterwards, the boy's mother took the initiative to apologize and kept praising her for being polite and good at expressing herself. I gently stroked her head, filled with indescribable pride in my heart. She never repeated the mistakes of my childhood, never developed a people-pleasing personality. She knows how to guard her boundaries and communicate in a gentle yet powerful way. Ethan Company is also thriving. The Female Technological Innovation Fund he established has supported more than a dozen early-stage projects, 2 of which have shown great market potential. We are not only intimate lovers, but also soulmates who can have in-depth conversations. This steady and fulfilling relationship is the kind of happiness I once never dared to hope for. On that ordinary weekend, we went to visit my parents. The sun was shining gently that day. Father tended to his flowers and plants in the yard, Mother busied herself in the kitchen, and Shelley chattered nonstop around her grandfather, while I helped my mother pick vegetables and assist with household chores. She suddenly lowered her voice and said that Jaden's mother had suffered a sudden stroke and was left paralyzed on one side of her body. His father was also in poor health, leaving Jaden with no choice but to take odd jobs to scrape by, and he was now borrowing money everywhere to make ends meet. My hand holding the kitchen knife paused for a moment, then returned to normal, and I only replied indifferently. Mother sighed and said they had only themselves to blame. I said nothing. When it came to Jaden and his family, I had long let go of all my obsessions. Their joys and sorrows, partings and reunions have nothing to do with me. At dinner, Father suddenly opened a bottle of fine wine he had kept for years, raised his glass with a smile, and said he wanted to celebrate two great joys. First, to celebrate my successful career and happy family, and second, to mark his upcoming promotion to honorary consultant of the association. The Environmental Protection Association that Father joined after his retirement officially appointed him as an honorary consultant for his outstanding performance in several projects. At the moment, the whole family raised their glasses in celebration. I gazed at the warm lights before me, filled with an unprecedented sense of peace in my heart. A few months later, A special visitor came to my studio, Swan, the girl I had invested in years ago. Seeing her again, the once young and timid girl with unease in her eyes now brims with confidence. She has founded her own brand, and her company is now on the right track. She was very excited to see me. She came this time, first to report her growth and achievements over the years, and second to invite me to serve as an independent director of her company. She explained that I wouldn't need to handle daily affairs. She only hoped I could offer guidance on strategic decision-making, and in return, she would allocate corresponding equity to me. I was somewhat surprised, but I had actually been keeping an eye on her project all along. She has both passion and business acumen, and she is down to earth and reliable in everything she does. Elle Reese gave me a detailed introduction to her rural agricultural brand. It has not only achieved substantial economic benefits, but also effectively boosted local farmers' employment, especially creating more development opportunities for left-behind women. I truly admire her original aspiration and dedication to helping others. I asked Suwan for the project's detailed documents and future development plans. She replied right away that all materials were fully prepared. Every detail from the project overview to long-term planning was well arranged, showing her devotion and rigorous attitude toward her career. We had an in-depth discussion on all project details. I was deeply impressed by its brand philosophy and development prospects, and agreed to the cooperation in principle, arranging the legal team to follow up on specific procedures. Overjoyed, she thanked me sincerely from the bottom of her heart. Cindy and remarked that this was one of our most representative high-quality investment cases. To me, helping promising dreams take root and blossom is far more meaningful than merely pursuing profits. This is exactly the investment philosophy I have always upheld, balancing commercial returns with social value. Rebirth has made me see through so much vanity. Fame, fortune, and status, the opinions of others, and temporary gains and losses are all like passing clouds. Only by creating genuine value, helping those who deserve it, and living a life I recognize as my own, can I find the true meaning of life. Time flies, and several years have passed in the blink of an eye. Chingkong Studio has grown into a highly influential social enterprise platform. We not only produce content, but also incubate and connect resources, forming a self-sustaining ecosystem. I now devote more time to my family and personal growth. Together with Ethan, I accompany Chelly through her crucial developmental stages. I signed up for oil painting classes, though I am not very good at it. The process of applying colors to canvas calms me down. Ethan, for his part, has taken up woodworking and set up a small workshop in our basement, making many toys for Chelly. Life is peaceful and fulfilling. I now devote more time to my family and personal growth. Together with Ethan, I accompany Chelly through her crucial developmental stages. We also learn new skills together. I signed up for oil painting classes, though I am not very good at it. The process of applying colors to canvas calms me down. Ethan, for his part, has taken up woodworking and set up a small workshop in our basement. Life is peaceful and fulfilling. That day, I was tidying up books in my study. As my fingertips brushed past a row of yellowed old books, I suddenly touched something hard. I pulled it out in confusion, only to find it was the old bank card that had once held Joanna's money and served as evidence. I ran my fingers over the worn edges and fell into a brief daze. This card bears the stories of my 2 lifetimes, and now, all those stories are long behind me. I took the card to the paper shredder, took a deep breath, and slowly fed it in with unwavering resolve. The machine hummed softly as the rigid card was sliced into fine white fragments. The last physical tie to that unbearable past was thus completely gone. Staring at the fragments, I let out a long, slow breath, feeling a clarity and lightness I had never known before. Just then, Ethan came home. He opened the door and walked in, carrying a black briefcase. I went up to greet him and took his briefcase. He slipped off his suit jacket, draped it over his arm, and pulled me into a hug. He told me that the artificial intelligence system for early cancer screening, which his company had led the development of, had won a national-level innovation award. I was genuinely happy for him. He smiled and said it was all the team's hard work, then asked how I wanted to celebrate that night. I said we should eat at home and that I would cook, and he immediately offered to help. In the kitchen, I was stir-frying vegetables while he was cutting fruits. We exchanged a smile occasionally. Chelly was doing her homework in the study, running out from time to time to ask a question. The evening breeze brought the delicate fragrance of jasmine from the yard, and the soup in the pot bubbled and gurgled, filling the air with its rich aroma. This is the most authentic appearance of life. Night deepened. Ethan, Chelly, and I sat in the rattan chairs on the terrace. Chelly was drowsy, her little head nodding slightly, gazing drowsily at the countless stars in the sky and asking me why the stars twinkled. I patted her gently on the back and said tenderly, "It's because the atmosphere is flowing." She mumbled a half-understood reply, her eyes growing increasingly hazy. After Chelly mumbled softly, she tilted her head and fell fast asleep in my arms. Ethan stood up gently and carefully took Chelly from my embrace, moving so softly as if afraid of waking her up. After Ethan tucked Chelly in, he returned to the terrace with a cup of warm milk and handed it to me. I took the milk, feeling the warmth of the cup against my fingertips, and took a small sip. He sat down beside me, and we gazed up at the starry sky side by side, silent yet at peace. My own starry sky is finally clear and cloudless. My story bears witness to ruin and renewal, hatred and forgiveness, a mark of my rebirth from the brink of despair. To me, this means everything. The rest of my life is long, and the future is full of promise. With the memories of 2 lifetimes and an enduring love for life, I will walk toward the bright path that belongs to me and those I hold dear.